Now imagine this, for example. You as a family do not own your home. You do not own what is around you. You do not own your business. The government has absolute control because they are the representative of collective ownership. Now imagine a scenario in which you do something that the government does not approve of. You read a book that it doesn't want you to read. You write an essay or an article that it doesn't like. You create a YouTube video commenting on something in a negative way. Now, those are all things that productive human beings do to critique and build and grow their society. But you can't do it there. And if you do something that the government disapproves of, using these social credit scores, they can ghost you. They can effectively lock you out of your world. And it works because you don't own anything.
Across the bridge, there's no more pains. The sun will shine across the river, and we'll never be unhappy again. Across the bridge, there's no more sorrow. Across the bridge, there's no more pain. The sun will shine across the river, and we'll never be unhappy again. Welcome. I sang that song because every true believer in Christ Jesus should be expecting the coming of the Lord. And expectation does not mean that we should go into predictions and giving out dates like we have had. All right, the first date, I would actually call it first and second date, but let's call it first date has failed, and so we're expecting the second date in the next 10 days or thereabout. Less than 10 days now. I will get there. But there's something I'd like to show you here, because many of us are not actually thinking in the right direction. We've been talking about the appearance of the Antichrist that will signal the proper anticipation of the coming of the Messiah. Well, irrespective of however you believe, we all are, at least we agree on one thing, that the end is nearer than than when we began. That should be the consensus belief of every true child of God and anyone who is waiting for the coming of Jesus. So I'd like you to pay attention here. That is something that is developing globally. And what you're going to hear in this video, you may also call it conspiracy theory. You can number me among the theorists. But if you know that we are closer, very much closer, very, very close than when we began. All right, I'll take you to this. All right. This video will enlighten you. This video will open your mind. This video will make you have a broader understanding about the programs of the world. There is an agenda that has been mapped out from when it began to 2030. 2030 seems to be the climax when this global agenda will be made, to materialize, to come into fruition. We'll get into that. There are lots of videos I would have shown you, but I want to limit myself to about 4 of such videos. First and foremost, there is something that is developing in the UK. It is everywhere. It has happened everywhere. But UK's own is becoming very, very unique in the sense that it is now mandatory. Just like I was talking about something in Nigeria before, but then let me not speak too much. Let's go ahead and have a look and a feel of what I'm saying. Now, this is the UK Prime Minister, Starmer. Let's hear what he has to say, what he has to tell his country people about digital identity. Please, don't go anywhere.
It's not just that it's not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages, but the simple fact that every nation needs to have control over its borders. We do need to know who is in our country. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. Otherwise, it undermines trust, undermines people's faith that we're on their side, and their belief that the state can and will work for them. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict, climate change, issues that aren't just intolerable for those of us who care about inequality and injustice wherever it's found in the world, but which have clear consequences for our own citizens. Take Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We all have a responsibility for the future of our continent, to stand tall where oppression and violence rears its head. But it is also about energy security, because Putin and other tyrants have used their control over energy supplies as a threat. They've pushed up energy bills, threatened to keep doing so unless they get their way. And that's why we're investing in our own energy, sovereign control over our own future, whether that's nuclear, wind, solar power. Now, this will create good jobs, but it will also take the boot of tyrants like Putin off our throat. So our mission to become a clean energy superpower is about future-proofing energy supply, bringing energy bills down and protecting the planet that we all live on, doing right by our values and by our countries and our citizens. Because in this era, we must be the nation builders. We must be the patriots in our countries. We must show working people that we, and only we, can deliver the pride and belonging they seek. Their communities strong, cohesive, changed for the better, taking control of our future, tackling the big challenges, whether that's climate change or illegal migration, not shying away from them. That is how we win. That is how we rebuild. That's how renewal defeats grievance. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Now, this is by no means anything linked to the Antichrist. At least for now, this man is not the Antichrist. All right, the Prime Minister of Britain is not the Antichrist. But how does it make sense? How are we now building conspiracy around these things? That, I believe, is the question you're asking. All right, I'm going to show you something. There are other videos I will show you that will make you realize something. Now, this new Prime Minister is not the first that had projected this idea. When Tony Blair was the minister in the UK, I think it was the first Prime Minister in the United Kingdom that projected this idea, but it was flatly rejected. Now, this one, yet, he said it is mandatory, even though it is free, it is mandatory. Now, there is a possibility that the legislators in the UK may rise against it, debate against it, and may be able to quash it. But I want to tell you something. Once it is in the pipeline, one day, everybody will begin to see, that there is nothing wrong with this. This is okay. Listen. When what happened in 2019, 2020 came out, and then the ideas that they brought out as to wage and to quench that, that scourge that time. I told people around me that was not the mark of the beast, even though there's some pastors and some holy people, some very spiritual people, some prophetesses and prophets believed that was the mark of the beast, but that wasn't the mark of the beast. But what they did was, it was a test running. They tested the waters and they saw how successful it was. Now, there is a global body, World Economic Forum, that is at the forefront of everything that is shaping your world. I have videos about that, few videos about that I would show you. That doesn't in any way explain in details what these people are up, and what programs they have for the universe. Now, remember, whether you like it or not, there are people who are controlling this world. The world is in their hands, and the Bible said so, that a figure will rise and will seek to change time and seasons, and the power shall be given into his hands. All right. So you may be saying, what are we talking about? Well, conspiracy theorists, what is the problem with you guys? I know you think there's a problem with us, but I'd like you to listen to this lady here. She's not a pastor. She may not even be a Christian. But if you understand that this whole thing is about control, and when the Antichrist will come, what he will seek to do is to control people. And there is a ground that is being made I've been saying this thing. Almost all the rapture videos I made last week or since a month ago, I've been talking about this. All right. So Why is this a problem? The problem is that there was a language of the Antichrist that he echoed. He said, let me spell this out. Without the digital ID, it cannot work. And once you cannot work, you cannot earn. And if you cannot earn, you cannot buy. So he who does not have the mark can neither buy nor sell. So the power of commerce will be taken away from individuals. Now, I'd like you to pay attention to what this lady here says. Please pay attention. Pay attention. God bless you. Pay attention to what she has to say here.
This is your wake-up call. The British government is pushing forward with plans for a national digital ID system. They've called it the Brit card. And if that name doesn't send a chill down your spine, you have not been paying attention. I'm Bev Turner, and this is GB News Originals. Don't forget to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel, please. Now let's call it what it really is. The Brit card is not about making your life easier. It's about making you easier to track, control, and punish if you step out of line across whatever line of the day is deemed important. They've wrapped it up in slick PR language about streamlining services and enhancing security and making sure that the Windrush scandal never happens again, because people who are allowed to live here will have the proof that they do so. They're also telling you all through the press that this will stop people coming over here on small boats. That is patently untrue. It isn't just about proving who you are online. That all sounds rather lovely. This is about building a centralised, state-controlled digital identity system that could be used, will be used, to link your finances, your medical history, your travel movements, your social media activity, even your social activity in real life, and more. It's quite frankly a digital dog tag, and once it's clipped around your neck, you will not be able to take it off. So let's start with the basics. What is this Brit card?
Now, note that she's calling it Brit card. This video came even before this announcement. She made this video, I think, about a year or two, or about a few months ago, before this thing, was made official a few days ago by the Prime Minister. So this has been in the offing. It has been, cooking. Like I told you, the one-time former minister of the United Kingdom, Tony Blair, was one that projected this idea of a thing, but it was shut down. It was this time around. Let's see if it will ever be thought of. But I wanted to understand that a time will come when nobody will have anything against it. These people their government are so organized. They're not like our country where the executive will say something and the legislative arm of government will be like, is there anything we can add to it so that we can approve it for you? Is there anything, just anything you want, we can. But here you have people who are free to say whatever they want to say, criticize, and analyze actions of government. So that past time, it did not pass through. But this man now is coming with some kind of audacity that this is going to be mandatory for everybody. So if you are a footballer, you want to play your trade in England, for instance, you don't have that social digital ID, no way for you. You are a social health giver, social caregiver. Like some of my friends in those days who were social health caregivers, they were forced to take the Sinva, right? The Sinva that became mandatory. Let me not just say so much. They took it and some of them became very sick after taking the Sinva.
According to leaked briefings and government statements, and frankly, any of us who've been paying attention knew this was coming, the Brit card is going to act as a unified digital identification that every British citizen can use to access public services to prove their identity. And eventually, though they won't say this part out loud, link with your banking, your health, and your travel movements. They're calling it optional for now, but we've heard that line before. Remember vaccine passports? Yes, I do.
It was optional. By the time she made this video, it was optional. But at this point in time, you heard from the Prime Minister, it's going to be mandatory. You can't say no, you can't refuse it. And does that give you an idea? Keep listening.
They started as a temporary solution, but within weeks, you couldn't get into a pub or fly abroad without one. Make no mistake, the Brit card is the foundation of a surveillance state. Once in place, it will become incredibly easy to expand, quietly, incrementally, until it is essential for anything you want to do. You want to apply for a job? Brit card. Rent a flat? Brit card. Take a train? You guessed it. Brit card. And once that is normal, it is no longer this so-called card. It is a digital chain. It is invisible, but it is ironclad. The sales pitch, of course, for this is it's all about security and efficiency. The government's narrative is all very slick, and they will say this is to reduce fraud. They'll tell you it'll make accessing NHS services easier or help you prove who you are when applying for benefits. All of that sounds great until you realise what you're giving up in return. A centralised ID, like the Brit card, will track everything you do. So when you check in to the GP surgery, the government will know. When you make a payment, when you log into a website, when you get on a train, imagine a digital record of your daily life monitored by both public and private entities. Your movements, your choices, your health, and critically, your opinions. This is not hypothetical. This technology exists. It will be easy to implement. The motivation to make it happen exists. And the right pretext, I don't know, another pandemic, a financial crisis, a spike in online hate speech, you will be told this is all for your own good. And if you think this ends with digital ID, I've got a bridge to sell you. The front pages of the papers this week were telling you, as though you're idiots, that a Brit card will stop people coming over on small boats seeking asylum, refuge, or being an economic migrant, because those people can often escape into the black market economy, working without the state knowing anything about them. Well, the state is already meant to know about them. If they're being given jobs, they should have the papers to secure that job. The Brit card won't make any difference to that at all. It will not operate as a deterrent to people who want to come across to this wonderful country. So just ignore that when you're being sold that idea. Let's also not forget that we are already seeing the slow creep of programmable money. The Bank of England is working on a digital pound and has been for a few years. And there are active conversations now about linking spending capabilities to your digital identity. That means if your ID is flagged, limited or suspended, I don't know, because maybe you said some hurty words on social media, that will mean you can't access your own money. Just let that sink in. The government already has a proven track record of making life extremely difficult for people who don't toe their very narrow line. From freezing protesters' bank accounts to threatening censorship online, the precedent is clear. Give power-hungry bureaucrats without sufficient conscience or imagination a system like Britcard, and you're handing these idiots the keys to your digital life. And just wait until it's tied to your carbon tracking or your health data. You didn't recycle this week? Points will be deducted. Bought too much red meat or petrol? Access denied. Did you say something misleading? Perhaps some misinformation, the kind of stuff that you and I would know to be true on social media? Your account will be flagged. If you think that is far-fetched, then you haven't been reading the same websites as me. You just have to go and have a cursory glance to the World Economic Forum website, and it's all there in black and white as an ambition. No vote, no debate, no accountability, no parliamentary scrutiny. This is all happening whilst we are talking about less important things. Now, what makes the Brit card so dangerous isn't just what it does, it's how it's being rolled out. There's been no referendum, no meaningful public debate, no mainstream media scrutiny worth mentioning. Everybody just treats this as though it's a fait accompli, and they completely lack the vision or the cynicism to work out what's going on. It's being slid in under the radar, piecemeal, behind closed doors, dressed up as tech innovation. It is classic mission creep. And right now we're told the Brit card will be voluntary. Of course it is. But so was the NHS app. So was that ridiculously expensive 30 billion quid track and trace check-in app. So was digital banking, remember? That would always be optional. Not anymore. Over time, these systems like those evolve from handy options for convenience into non-negotiable requirements. The infrastructure is being built while we're distracted. And once it's in, it's only a matter of flipping a few switches before it becomes mandatory. It isn't mandatory, of course.
The system is being built. Now, this lady's idea and sense, of presence of mind is astonishing. Many people are looking away from this as if, it is nothing. It is just normal thing now, And believe you me, some of you who may see this video would rank us as conspiracy theorists. Yes. And so we'll even go a very long way to include Christianity into it. Christians are conspiracy theorists. That religion, everything. Boy, you don't understand. You're speaking like that because you are bereft of the knowledge of what is happening. Listen, the Antichrist with this whole program is already cited. It's just that we don't know who he is in person now, but I tell you, he is cited. He is cited. It's either that the conception is already there, or that he is somewhere waiting and cooling off till its time of manifestation. Right? I wish I could play all of the clips of this lady, but I have something else I have to show you here. There's something that I need to show you, and it will. Have you heard something like you will own nothing, yet you'll be happy? I said, when this project is rolled out, majority of the people will like it. Because as it is, you will think it is for you. You don't have, naturally now, you don't have money enough even to pay your rent. And they're telling you, oh no, don't bother. Don't just worry about it. Because this time is coming when, even when you don't own anything, you will be happy. You will live in a very good house. There is nothing that will, suggest that you don't have anything, because you will spend as much as you want to spend. You eat enough. You think they're doing you a good, word of favor, right? And I'd like you to pay attention to this interview. I've brought this video before sometimes ago. Sometimes I have pains in my heart because some of the videos I do are things that many people need to see, many people need to hear. But what goes viral are those things like the predictions of the rapture. I wish that God would give this a speed to fly. And I wish you will be present to make people also hear this. Please, can you share this video? Can you just pause it and share this link, please? Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Continue watching.
Restructure the global economy in the wake of COVID-19. But what are some of the dangers inherent in this ideology? Joining me to discuss is Douglas Kruger, who's a speaker and author focusing on political correctness. Douglas, could you tell our viewers, what is this idea of the Great Reset exactly, and what are some of the risks attached to it?
Like many of the politically correct ideas that we hear bandied about in the media, this entire project is couched in kindness. It is presented as something that is being done or being proposed for our good and for the greater good. And that always sets my alarms and sensors going, because that tends to lead to very problematic ideology. In a very quick nutshell, the proposal out of Davos is essentially this: a group of exceptionally powerful individuals, predominantly in the banking, finance, and business sector, in alliance with government leadership, are proposing that as a result of these COVID lockdowns that have done a great deal of damage to economies globally, they perceive that they now have an opportunity to rebuild economies, but to do so in what they believe is a more enlightened fashion. And there are generally speaking, there are problems with the idea of groups of people in power deciding the history of humanity. In the best case scenario, we are simply supposed to be free to determine our own futures, our own progress, what we want out of life. Now, in this particular case, what they're proposing is a sort of collectivist idea that takes personal ownership out of the equation. The little phrase, and it sounds so innocent, is you will own nothing and you will be happy. Now, if you go back just several hundred years, the founding father and first president of the United States, which was essentially a project founded on the idea of human liberty and freedom, pretty much for the first time in modern history, George Washington said there is no such thing as personal human rights without property ownership. And he said that for several very interesting and important reasons. But the principle is sound. If you are dependent on a greater power for everything, then you are not free. You place yourself as an individual in quite a precarious situation. It was, in fact, the formula for living, the sort of political reality for most of human history. If you look back at a simple setup like the serfs of Europe, this is a group of people who owned nothing and simply contributed to the overlord who determined what they could and could not have. And they had zero rights. It is the property that you own that actually ensures your rights to a great degree. So while this may sound like a very enlightened idea, sort of a communal, collectivist utopia, there are many problems with this once you start thinking about how it might actually be implemented. And that's what concerns me.
So Douglas, is there a risk here that we could see an encroachment of state power into the lives of ordinary individuals and essentially a kind of creeping tyranny that takes hold?
Well, economist and historian Dr. Thomas Sowell makes a very interesting point about how humans evaluate political systems. And he says we make the terrific mistake of evaluating them based on their kindly sounding intentions before the fact, rather than on their outcomes after the fact. And he proposes the idea that our world, our politics would look very different if we had to judge each thing that politicians and governments try based on the outcomes instead of the intentions. At the intention stage, it is remarkably easy for smooth politicians to stand up and say kindly sounding things. Now, the sorts of things that we're hearing from Davos and from the likes of the proponents of the Great Reset all talk about collectivist and communal living and how nobody will own anything. But now consider for just a second, that is already a fallacy. Someone, somewhere, has to own. And in fact, what happens is, if you take ownership out of the hands of a broad-based populace and of many separate entrepreneurs and families and individuals, and you concentrate it into the hands of, say, a few multinational corporations working together with government, well, firstly, that system is by definition fascistic. This idea of an all-powerful government and the businesses that work in conjunction with them. It leads very quickly to cronyism, to the types of corruption that we see, particularly in South Africa, where we are so keen on talking about business and government collaborating. And doesn't that just sound like such a good thing, business and government collaborating? What happens there is you have the people who own the rules, enforce right and wrong, and have a financial incentive to be corrupt, working with the people who have the money and have an incentive to corrupt them. It's a dreadful formula just to begin with. However, what concerns me is perhaps on a bigger scale than that. When we talk about collective ownership, we are often told that the great thing about it is that everybody will own. The reality of the thing is that nobody but those in power own. And that impulse to take away private property ownership and to concentrate it into the hands of a representative government is purely Marxist. I mean, it is the heart and soul of the Marxist idea, which stripped down to its basics is nobody owns property, it is collectively owned. And as I say, of course, the fallacy there is that it is not actually collectively owned, it is owned by those in power. Now, what can go wrong with that? Well, if we look at modern-day China, we get a very good example of this one. Modern-day China, of course, a bit of a mixed economy. They have prospered to the degree that they started permitting free trade. However, they are still very much a Marxist society, and they work according to social credit scores. And social credit scores imposed by law represent a very chilling idea. Now imagine this, for example. You as a family do not own your home. You do not own what is around you. You do not own your business. The government has absolute control because they are the representative of collective ownership. Now imagine a scenario in which you do something that the government does not approve of. You read a book that it doesn't want you to read. You write an essay or an article that it doesn't like. You create a YouTube video commenting on something in a negative way. Now those are all things that productive human beings do to critique and build and grow their society. But you can't do it there. And if you do something that the government disapproves of, using these social credit scores, they can ghost you. They can effectively lock you out of your world. And it works because you don't own anything. It is that ownership, that broad-based private ownership, that keeps people free from government tyranny. Maggie Thatcher from the UK very famously embarked on a project to expand human liberty in her nation by trying to ensure as much broad-based private and individual ownership of property as possible. In that, she was in agreement with George Washington, who said that it is property rights that prop up human freedom. You can go into great depth in philosophy on this one. You can even take property rights down to the level of your thoughts. Are you free to own them? Are you free to express them? Or is the realm of thinking controlled by a collective? Now, of course, all that sounds, it sounds like terrible fear-mongering. But of course, the question for anyone who looks back over history is to ask, could it happen here? Could it happen again? And I think if you do know your history, the answer is it happens surprisingly easily and it happens surprisingly often. When communities play with this idea of collectivist ownership, I would argue that it happens 100% of the time. And that when we're talking about collective ownership and the elevating of the group over the sanctity of the individual, we are dealing with a formula that has been deeply damaging to the human species.
So Douglas, what about the threats to the property that we already own? Is there a risk there that we might lose our ownership over our existing property?
David, that's an excellent question, and it's one that I think people are not considering. Now, think again of those words. You will own nothing, and you will be happy. It doesn't allow for you will continue to own what your family has bequeathed down the generations. The simple statement, if we are to take them at their word, is you will own nothing, and you will be happy. Now, that poses some fascinating problems in terms of what communities already own. We, largely around the world, we own our homes. We bequeath heirlooms, family heirlooms to the next generation. You might own a wedding ring. You might own things that you want to give on to your children. And I would argue that that is one of the very best things that we do. Each generation generation tries to uplift the next generation, this philosophy seems to be saying, instead of doing that, we reset each generation at zero and leave you dependent on a government welfare system. Now, from the most basic human perspective, that strikes me as deeply unhealthy. If the best thing we do is to raise up our children and help them to go further than us, then starting at zero with government dependency every generation, it strikes me as a bit of a chilling idea. If you look at basic stats, human stats, around groups of people living on welfare, you will find that you have disproportionate rates of marital breakup, of family breakup, of alcohol and drug abuse, and of interpersonal violence. The stats are way different to people who are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, employed or running their own businesses. So one of the things that I think people are not considering here is under a paradigm in which nobody owns anything, we all become a group of people living under the welfare state. And it seems to me that that is a very good way to do damage to the health and to the psyche of human beings. We don't seem to prosper under such conditions. I concede very readily that we have to help the poor and the struggling among us. I mean, that is a Christian, a Judeo-Christian principle. It has been built into Western classical thinking for a very long time. But a welfare state in which you don't do anything, but you live dependent on the government, seems to cause human beings to rot. I don't think it's a healthy scenario. We're proposing it on a global scale.
Well, thanks very much, Douglas. I think it's important that we interrogate the dominant narratives that are emerging from global institutions like the World Economic Forum and to ask ourselves, who are these narratives serving exactly? My name is David Ansara. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel.
All right. Thank you if you're still here. Now, when he said that it's possible, when this idea is in place, that when you read a book that they don't want you to read, when you say something they don't want you to say, now it practically means that they can come up with an edict, a law that bars a certain group of people from getting a certain book that they call the Bible. Now, if you look around, you see that globally, there is no other religious book that is as criticized and as maligned as the Bible. And there is no religious group that has been hated as much as Christians or Christianity has been hated. Tell me if you have come in any way, you've seen anywhere where a Quran was criticized openly in spite of the violence that Islam promotes and represents. Have you seen anywhere where Quran was burnt? Somebody taught like Matthias, does always, and many people have done it online with videos. Now, those who have even mistakenly said something amiss about the Quran, some of them were killed and nobody asked questions about it. Have you seen it where the Hindus book was, set on fire? Those ones are not aggressive. But nobody cares, nobody bothers. So it is possible that when this agenda comes in play, you don't own anything, but you'll be happy. But then you cannot pursue your own fate that is contrary to the ideas of the government. People, the Antichrist has been cited. Believe it or not, the Antichrist has been cited. Now, some person said that this is not true and all that. This man here is the leader, the chairman of the World Economic Forum. And when you go online, you see a lot of things that he's promoting and projecting. And here he's projecting that in 2030, the ways of you driving your private cars would end. All right, now hear it from him, because I saw somebody who was saying that you will own nothing but you'll be happy. It is a conspiracy, that there is nothing like that. But hear him say something very similar. Look at this.
For the 20th, I hope I will have the pleasure still to be invited for the meeting. When we meet for the 20th Governance Summit, you will use the app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but automatically guided car, a self-driven car, will come to your hotel or wherever you are and will bring you to the airport. No, Los Angeles is one of the cities with the heaviest traffic, who told me in 2030, Los Angeles will be private car driven free. And this will allow to transform highways into parks and other public spheres.
Okay, people, I just want you to remember where we started from. We began somewhere, and we are saying
it's not just that it's not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages, but the simple fact that every nation needs to have control over its borders. we do need to know who is in our country. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. Otherwise, it undermines trust, undermines people's faith that we're on their side, and their belief that the state can and will work for them. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
A new free or mandatory digital ID. Before it was optional, but now it is going to be mandatory, no longer optional. Now, you see, like I said from the beginning, that this thing is not new, right? There have been countries who have subscribed to this, but if a world power like the Britain is getting involved, and of course, the NIN that Nigeria has now, the original plan of which was that the ID card would be like ATM card. So everything about you will be there, your bank account, everything about you can use it and go to ATM and withdraw money. And even though that they have abandoned it seemingly, but I tell you, very soon it will be reactivated. Now, many other countries also use digital ID of one kind or another, including Singapore, Greece, France, Bosnia and Herzegovina, the United Arab Emirates, China, Costa Rica, South Korea, and Afghanistan. Now, if you come in Africa, we have Benin Republic. In 2019, the Benin government has prioritized improving digital ID access and introduced biometric cards through the RAVIP. Right now, you have Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, of course, Nigeria, and Uganda. So it's not just in the Great Britain, and I believe that in the US there is also a form of that. We're talking about implant chips, or implant chips and what have you. All right. Now, but the danger, why you need to understand that the Antichrist has been cited, is that this whole thing borders on control. Who do they want to control? You and me. And just like I said, and taking it from the Prime Minister of Britain, that if you don't have these things, if you don't have it, you cannot work. And if you cannot work, you are powerless. You cannot earn. And he that cannot earn cannot eat. It's just basically simple as that. There is nothing, nothing else to it. All right? And it is about control. Take it or leave it. Now, these countries that are coming up with this, definitely is going to make it very easy, very, very easy. If a lawless and disorganized environments like our country here could force everybody who is of age 18 to have our own version of digital ID, NIN, right? Now, tell me which other country cannot do it. Tell me which other country that cannot do it. And of course, without you, if you go to the bank and your NIN has problems, you cannot withdraw. If there is a mistake in your date of birth that is submitted in the BVN and it doesn't tally with the one on your NIN, you're on a long thing. You cannot withdraw anything. You cannot get international passport except you go back to correct the differences between the two documents. So there is an agenda building a system that will make the government of the Antichrist to take off smoothly, seamlessly. And this, my brethren, I say, the Antichrist has been cited. Well, I want to read your comments in the comment section. All this is never in any way to put fear in your mind. Just like we know that there are people who believe there are different opinions in Christendom about the timeline of the rapture, the pre-trib, the mid-trib, and the post-trib. The pre-trib are those that are expecting that Jesus is coming this October. Now listen, whether he comes or not, believe it, take it. The Antichrist has been cited. You and I may not know him, but he's there. We're just waiting for the revelation, the revealing of the Antichrist. And that is when you understand properly that the beginning of the end is upon us. Thank you and God bless you. I would like to know what you think about this in the comment section. I'll be coming your way in the next video. Till then, from me to you. Shalom.